Identifying the narcissist in my life has been a lifelong journey. And most people who have finally identified the narcissist in their life will all say the same thing. I wish I knew years ago. And the reason why this is a topic that many highly sensitive people really need to be aware of is because there is a correlation between narcissists attracting highly sensitive people, aka highly empathetic people. So I want to take this opportunity while I have this amazing HSP community on YouTube to bring to light a really significant issue. Please know that pathological narcissists will specifically choose their targets, and those targets will include the most loving, the most kind, the most forgiving, and highly empathetic people. In fact, they're the only people that will tolerate the sort of abuse that they dish out, and highly sensitive people absolutely meet their criteria. The biggest identifying mark with narcissists is that they lack empathy. And they will display a pseudo-empathy, which means they will convince you that they care and that they empathize, but that's only to manipulate you. In fact, our empathy and our kindness and our forgiving nature is what attracts narcissists to us, because they often use our empathy against us to get their way. So I'm going to mention a list of very predictable behaviors that a narcissist will display. So some of the really typical behaviors to look out for is an overinflated sense of ego, a sense of superiority, a sense of that this person is better than anybody else. They generally expect some sort of special treatment from the world, and they feel entitled and like the world owes them something. They're very charming and charismatic initially when you meet them. They love to name drop, and they're always preoccupied with the impression that they're making. They're really good at maintaining superficial conversations, so they're really great at small talk, and they really enjoy drama. So they will exaggerate, they will fabricate events simply to get an emotional response from you. Relationships with a narcissist always involve games. In fact, our emotions, the whole relationship, every conversation, everything is a game to them. They're extremely self-absorbed, vain, and attention-seeking. They require admiration, applause, and recognition everywhere they go. They're quite defensive if you don't admire or respect them. They love to be associated with people who can glamorize them, so they will talk about who they know, how they've got all these amazing contacts, basically to make them feel special and that you're lucky to know them. And in public, they appear very charismatic, very generous, so charming, but behind closed doors, they will go stone cold. And that's where the correlation between narcissism and Jekyll and Hyde comes into play. Other things to be wary of is that they talk incessantly, and they'll rarely stop to ask you about your opinion or what you think. They have total disregard for anybody else's needs, requests, or boundaries. They will be inconsiderate of your time and energy. They are extremely proud. They will deny responsibility. They will always play the victim, and they generally snare people with a sob story. So they will tell you about an awful experience that happened to them. Their mother abused them. They had the most awful ex-girlfriend in the history of girlfriends. So they love to play the victim, and they love to blame. Narcissists are simply unable to trust anything or anyone in the world, and they have a very negative outlook. They will pretend that they're really positive about things, but by their actions, you will recognize that they are very skeptical and fearful. The narcissist in your life isn't able to be introspective. In fact, they lack an inner life. And you'll also notice that you will have endless, convoluted conversations with a narcissist. It's rare to get a straight answer out of them. They will try and confuse you. They'll divert from the question and the topic that you're just discussing. They will go back and forth in conversations. And by the end of it, you will just walk away feeling like you're absolutely crazy. So this is very typical of what narcissists do, and it's part of cognitive dissonance, which is a psychological term, but what we commonly call it is crazy making. Another sign is that they have total disregard for authority. In fact, they live their lives as if rules don't apply to them. Please also note that they will do anything to protect their reputation. So when their mask slips, and that will happen behind closed doors, and you might be the only person who sees their mask slip, which means they will reveal who they really are. What will happen is that they will fly into a narcissistic rage, and they will be explosive in their rage. And this is another way to emotionally destabilize you, to manipulate you, and to control you through fear. They will make outrageous demands. They will blackmail you, threaten you. They will never be satisfied. They will dominate and bully you into silence. And narcissists will seek out and choose partners that can be financially, emotionally, physically dependent on them. So then they can feel that they can completely control you. Another really interesting thing to note is that narcissists will take you away from your circle of friends. They will create conflicts with family members. They will even make you move to a more remote area, simply so you have no contact with anybody else who can actually validate your reality that you are in a relationship with an extremely destructive, emotionally abusive narcissist. You'll notice that any independent thinking is actually seen as a threat. So the moment they will get onto the fact that you're learning, that you're studying, that you are becoming more aware, any sort of development of you becoming smarter will be seen as an utter threat. So they will devalue you, they will criticize you, they will plant seeds of doubt, and all relationships with a narcissist will be based on emotional abuse, will be based on psychological abuse, physical abuse in some cases, spiritual abuse, and financial abuse. So that's why narcissistic victim abuse is considered one of the most destructive forms of abuse that a human being can endure, simply because it's so subtle and it's insidious and it's extremely difficult to identify. You cannot pin these people down. They are so good at covering their tracks. They are so busy manipulating the rest of the world and creating this false impression of how fantastic they are. So even when you do open your mouth and say, I think there is a problem with this relationship or with this behavior, it's not normal. You will end up looking like the crazy one. How dare you say something so terrible about this magnificent person? Another really important point to remember is that the narcissist will use their role in your life against you. So if this person is your father, your mother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, they will control you via guilt to such a point where you will be questioning, how could my mother be treating me this way? How could my father be so cold and manipulative? And again, this is part of the crazy making. This is the part where we start to doubt our own heart, our own intuition, and our own self-worth. It's the lack of awareness and the lack of knowledge and the confusion and the inability to identify what's dysfunctional, what's normal, and what isn't that keeps us trapped in these toxic relationships. So I'm going to do a video series specifically dedicated to the topic of narcissism and highly sensitive people. I hope some of these insights resonated for you and helped you to clarify and possibly identify the narcissist in your life.